Excellent. You're all festive there. Where are you located?
I'm in Englewood, Los Angeles.
Okay, cool. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
Cool. Is
Right
it
on.
cold already?
Well, it's not bad. It's in the 50s actually. It's pretty
Okay.
temperate. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I
We get 60s and 50s in the mornings.
yeah, oh, there you go. See? Yeah, at this point now it should be a different story, but it's all good. We'll take it.
We'll take
So,
it.
um
Yeah,
but it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. And I want to begin our conversation with what we've lived through for the last 3.5 years. Living through a
absolutely. Let's go.
pandemic. How did you get through it? How did it change you?
Man, I had to tell you that I feel pretty lucky because I was already kind of working from home. I had left photography. I was working for Target and as a photographer, and I had a baby, and I was like, all right, time to go do that again, my last one. And right when he was maybe 2, 3 years old, then the pandemic. And it was interesting because I was in Europe, and I decided that I was going to take a solo trip to Europe for about 21 days without the family, just me by myself. And COVID hit, and I couldn't go anywhere. I was stuck in Berlin, was able to, because I was traveling through Europe, and I was able to get all the way to Budapest, and I had to fly back that next day because everything just started to close, all the airports, and there was that panic. We were on buses getting like our temperature check and everything, so it was very real for me. And I was in a whole different country, and I have my husband saying, "Get home now. I don't care what it costs." It literally cost me about $500 to get to Europe and $3,000 to fly back, just to get on a ticket to come home. And so once we were home, I do feel that we were part of that lucky group because my partner, he was able to work from home right away, right away, within maybe 4 to 5, 6 months from the pandemic started. He had 3 freelance jobs from home. And so while it was terrifying and it just felt like the world was so uncertain. You didn't know what to believe. And financially, we were pretty good. And the safety of having our home, being able to afford our mortgage, not being in panic about that, literally, I think put us in a different category as far as like what some other people went through without work, without, like I don't even know how many people probably became homeless or close to homeless because of it. So I do feel pretty lucky. Emotionally, it was the most chaotic thing I ever experienced because we also had some death, but the death we had weren't elderly people, were babies and children. So that was devastating in a different way.
So on paper, we have metaphysics, marketing, and photography. So let's make this something universally understood. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students,
Okay.
and it's career day, and one of the kids looks up and asks you, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I would look at him and I would say, that's a great question. So they can stay motivated and to remind them that asking questions is the way to go, that there is no stupid question. And I would definitely think about like I have a 7-year old and he's in first grade, and I have to kind of, water it down a little bit for his level. And when I explain to him what is metaphysics, we all know what religion is and spirituality. Most of us, especially in America, have an understanding about at least church. And so what I tell him is that metaphysics, it's two different words, and the last part of it is physics, which is all about the physical world. And meta simply means before the physical. So we start talking about all the things that are in the invisible realm, like thoughts, ideas, feelings, emotions, and all that stuff for me is really about the spiritual without having to put a very specific religious term to it. All your thoughts or your ideas or your emotions, your moral yardstick, what feels good to do. How do we help people? How are we good students? That's all metaphysics. And it doesn't have to be, even though it could be calcified religion, it doesn't have to be religious at all. It's really about understanding before things become physical. What are they? Even in art, before you take a pencil and a pen, you have the ideas.
Yeah.
in your mind. That's the invisible part, the imagination that's really important. So I would start there with someone in that 8, 9 years old, and I would also ask them what they think it is. Because a lot of times kids know a lot more, they're more intuitive than we are as an adults, that we've forgotten, and we maybe have some barriers, have gotten burned, and had some painful experiences. They might not be there, so they might be just generally already more willing and open to understanding things that are pretty basic. We as adults tend to complicate things, so it
Yeah.
would be a really fun conversation to be in that room. I
Yeah.
feel like I would learn a lot from them.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
Man, I don't remember much, but I do remember that I was drawing a lot. Um, I definitely do remember drawing a lot as a kid, and even as I got into high school, just my favorite class was always art. Maybe wanted it to be a fashion designer, a tattoo artist, something to do with the arts. And photography was something that kind of just fell on my lap because I did a summer class when I was 12 years old, and it wasn't anything that I was pursuing. It was just another part of classes and things that I was interested in. As an adult, one day I was just like, I feel like I can make money at this, and then I pursued it, professionally. But the arts seem to have been, the language and the careers that most attracted me.
So what were some of the more specific seeds growing up that were a part of you becoming creative and leading this life that you have right now?
Well, I would say my mom. My mom, I think, was a very creative person. She told us stories that she enrolled herself in music school when she was a child. Her parents were professionals. I think my grandpa, I don't like didn't talk to my grandpa a whole lot, but he was the head of the DEA in Puerto Rico. My grandma was a registered nurse back in the day when women couldn't be doctors. That's like the highest. So they were very into education. And but my mom enrolled herself, like, I think as a young girl, 12, 13 years old, in school for arts, and just couldn't go because she didn't have a musical instrument, and she got accepted. So I think that all of my brothers and sisters, I have three brothers and one sister. My sister's from a phenomenal singer. I have another brother that's a jazz musician. He's a trumpet player. We just worked on an album together. I did his art. I
Oh,
took the
cool.
photos, did the cover art, and he obviously did all the music. I have another brother that he could draw photorealistic when computers didn't have pencils and when it was just like green dots.
Yeah.
And we were just like, how does he even do this with a mouse? And so I think that all that stuff, all that art comes from my mom's side. My dad was kind of from the country, so he was, um, you know, cutting with a machete, cutting food and taking care of the animals. So I think my mom's a big influence on why we're all super artistic like that.
So who's a hero for you in your life?
That's a hard question. Such a good question. Who is my hero? I feel like there's so many. There's so many people who've influenced the person that I am now. Um, but I would still have to say, and not to keep it, not to make it too religious, but I would say idea of God. I don't see God as like a man sitting on a throne dictating things, but the idea of a power, of an intelligence, has always drawn me, and I've always been a seeker of that. And so, if there is a being out there, I would say it would be how God had manifested itself through many people to create that desire for me to know more and know more. And I obviously that's how I ended up in the metaphysical world. Like just asking questions. But there's a group of people, if I have to mention a few, I would say Jim Carrey's always been a big influence for me as far as like the personal development and manifestation. And he's the one that popped into my head. So I wanted to honor that.
So maybe you already answered the question, but if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now and spend some time with them, who would it be?
It would definitely be Jim Carrey.
Yeah. What would be the
Definitely.
first thing you would ask him?
Um, I think about this a lot because I wouldn't want to meet my hero and completely become a fangirl and lose my mind, like, Michael Jackson style, with women were fainting and people were just I feel like initially that's what I want to do. But because I want to be taken seriously, I would ask him, things about that he already talks about. I know that recently he had I don't watch a lot of news or pop culture, but I know that he retired and he's like spends a lot of time painting. And I've taken some I've seen images of his paintings are like larger than life, huge paintings. And so I'm more fascinated for to get into his head about art. Because for me, art is also a very spiritual language, is a very spiritual experience. When I was young, my kids would, when I would be stressed out, they would say, "Mom, you should paint. Mom, go paint for a while, go draw for a while." And what I understood was that that was my form of calibrating and meditating, a way of rebalancing back, which is what a lot of times spirituality is a recalibration back to this state of peace and harmony with, with the world around us. So I would really ask him why he's a painter in spite of how successful he is in entertainment.
Well, I mean, it's just like with George W. Bush, he became a painter too. It's
I
like,
didn't know that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He sells and shows, and that was one of the first things that he did when he was out of office was he started painting.
Oh my God, I'm so gonna look that up as
Yeah,
soon as we're done with this conversation.
yeah, totally. So, what's been the best advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice that I think I ever gotten, I don't think it came directly from a person. Maybe it was like a book title or something along the lines, but it was like everyone's wrong. And what I love about that is that if you suddenly could not believe a single person in the world, where would you source truth from? Where
Yeah.
would you source a correct sound information from? And it really will come from within. And it will come from within, making that connection to the broader perspective of life. I always think that every single human here, even like a homeless person, I don't think those are accidents. I don't think they're mistakes. I don't think they're even fuck ups. Oops, am I allowed to
Fine.
curse?
You're good.
um, I think that every person adds to the human experience, an exploration of unconditional love. If bad things didn't exist, how would we ever prove that we would love unconditionally? I mean, it's a sad, for me, it's like a sad reality that through unfortunate events we experience heightened levels of love.
So, what is the motivation for you to every day to wake up, to create, to be who you are, to evolve? What is that motivation for you every day?
It's pretty big, and for a long time I rejected it because when I grew up in church, and I don't do religion the way that I was taught. I was Pentecostal. I don't know if you're familiar, but people who are not familiar who would listen to your show, it's a very strict sect of Christianity. No listening to music, no talking to people. I mean, pretty culty. Like once you kind of like see it from a
Yeah.
broader perspective, you're like, oh my God, and talk to nobody. All your friends were from church. All your activities are from church. The only thing that you believe are what the church people tell you. And you have no, as a child, no exposure to anything else. You have nothing to compare it to. So it's pretty, what's the word that wants to come through? Not isolating, but insulating. Like it's like in a protective way. So there's many positive aspects about that, teaching your children the right things. But if you're being taught the wrong things, it's just a world where you have no access to comparing it to anything else. And so when I was younger, I had this feeling that God, the idea of this power, wanted me to be like a preacher. And I was like, no, no way in hell. Like I'll do, because I had this desire to be closer to, God and the divine. But I had no desire to do it in the way that I was taught whatsoever. I loved being in the fashion industry. I love cursing. I love the naughty conversations that we were having. I thought that we were just having way more fun.
Yeah.
And I met people who did not believe in God and were nicer and kinder than the people I grew up with in church. It was completely confusing. or 18 years old, I would join the military, left home, and to meet people who say, I don't believe in God, and they were kinder to me than people who are like, I'm a preacher, who's like arrested for being, a sexual deviant. It's very confusing to be so insulated and then be completely exposed to the entire world. And I thought we were, people outside were just having more fun, and I couldn't find anything wrong with that. I just couldn't find anything wrong with that. So I always wanted to seek that higher level perspective of spirituality, but I just couldn't do it in that old traditional way. But a couple of times I had the message like, you should be a preacher. And I was like, I will not do that. I even had a minister, a metaphysical minister. She was like, when I go, I want to leave you my church. And I just like stopped talking to her. And I was like, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I just run away so bad. Like, I don't want to be a part of it. And in wanting to learn more about metaphysics, I actually got enrolled in a school that offered a doctor's degree in metaphysical studies, which is what I'm working on now. And coincidentally, and I didn't even focus on that part because I did read the curriculum, I did join the school. But once I started to get my bachelor's level, my master's level, because you have to go through all the levels, I realized that they had sent me um, a document that made me a minister. I was like, and it was the first time that I was like, did you make me a minister? Regardless, like I feel like God was like, oh, you're doing this,
Yeah.
and so I was pursuing this knowledge, and so I'm sitting here with my bachelor's in metaphysical studies and an ordained ministry, certificate, and I was just like, okay, so this is just destiny, obviously. And so I my biggest mission is I was always ambitious. I always wanted money. I always wanted success. I always wanted recognition. But at some point in my life, it just became absurd to not make life about something more than just me and my personal needs. And because of my past experience, because of the way that I was raised, because of my heritage, my culture, um domestic abuse is it's nearly pandemic level in my community. And so what and I'm trying not to get too emotional. I don't know if you hear my voice cracking a little. um Now that I said it, it's like, okay, you're gonna cry. But what can we do? My
Yeah.
mission is to try to use law of attraction and manifestation and spirituality that's not based on religion
Yeah.
to help women of domestic violence.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Of all of the people that you've helped, all of the art you created, what's been one of the best fan letters you've ever gotten back?
Um, Man, it's funny. I just got a text today from one of my students. I had a program called the God Academy. Because it was all about like diving into that spirituality in the metaphysical sense. And just before we were getting on, she's just like, "Hey, how are you? Um, I'll never forget, the classes. I still do the practices. So most of the time I do get at the end of my programs and at the end of my courses, I do get letters with people in complete awe of the experience they've had together. And, I claim very little responsibility for that. I think that sometimes you get into your destiny, and that's just kind of like how it works, that you don't necessarily think that you're doing such powerful thing. You're just like, well, this is what I do,
Uh-huh.
I'm just talking to you, I'm just helping you, I'm just sharing you what works for me. And people are just like, dude, you changed my life. So um I've had people cry and say, it was you that was the last thing that I needed in my life. And it's overwhelming because in reality, it's like totally not me. You
Right,
know what
right.
I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. That's heavy, totally heavy. So let me ask you this.
Is this weird that I'm crying so much?
No, 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 no,
Can you
you're
handle
good.
it? Can
You're
you handle
good.
it?
No, good. You seem resistant, but I get it. It's fine. I mean, it's just you're talking about emotional things. We're in the throes of an interview, so yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. If you need to take a minute, you just let me know. I need to check out for a minute. It's all good.
It's okay. I'll have a sip of coffee while you formulate your
There
question.
you go. So I'm curious, for all of the things that you've done in your life, you've evolved and you've overcome. If you were to have a dream tonight and you ran into, say, the senior in high school version of you, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained so far, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh man, this is the most powerful thing I would tell myself. Everybody's wrong. Do your thing.
Yeah.
Like I've had, there's so many times in my life where I listened to people who thought they knew, and probably they knew according to their experience, their um their personal skills, their knowledge, and what they came here to do in the world. That was just so wrong for me. And a lot of times when we don't develop that internal dialogue with ourselves, that really strong connection with ourselves and our desires, we are easily, by fear, by confusion, by just the world in general, we're easily moved out of the thing that sometimes we're just like, but I just think that this is going to work. And people's like, nah, it's not going to work. And specifically, I remember when I was I drove from my ex-husband had cheated on me for the second time. And I was like, I can't be in this marriage anymore. Left everything. And at that time we were in the military. So he was stationed in England. I took my daughter to New York with my mom and started there by myself, and things weren't moving. And I remember, um I don't know how I looked into the photography, because I was just like, well, I'm a good photographer and I've made money even just like doing headshots for people without any training, right? And so I was like, I think I could do this, and there's a promise of money at the end of that. And it's something I enjoy, because I just couldn't keep doing work that I was doing. HIV research, I was doing things that were important. I was doing peer education for people who were spreading HIV when it was like at the height
Wow.
of. I have friends that passed away. And it's meaningful work, powerful work, but it was just like wasn't lighting me up inside. And I think that we're here to do work that's meant for us to do, not necessarily work that's needed. There's work that's needed and there's people for that work that's needed, but there's also work that we came here to do. And so I thought photography was a good compromise between having a steady job that would pay and something that I would really enjoy that was still artistic. So I took my daughter, no car, no money, no cell phone, nothing, drove to Florida, enrolled myself in school, crossed my fingers, hoping I get some college loans, and got into an art school. And I busted my butt. I just remember having a part-time job and single mom and a one-bedroom apartment, and going to school for time, and then having to assist to build my portfolio. Like it was just, I don't even know. I was just like, damn, I was young, because I wouldn't have the energy or the confidence to do it. But I think sometimes desperation could serve us.
Yeah.
It could serve us. You could become a criminal when you're desperate, or you can also like figure it out. You could just be like, let's figure it out. And so in those a few years that I was in school working on my portfolio and just like really hustling and struggling, I within 2 weeks of graduation, I landed the head position for Dillard's. I went from nothing to somebody, like, overnight. And um I remember people telling me what to ask for salary. Oh, you don't have no experience, and you're blah 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 blah. You should ask $20,000. And I was like, I can't live,
Yeah.
because I already had a child, I already had a divorce. I was coming in with some baggage
Yeah.
into this game. I was an adult student, so I took it more seriously. I wasn't partying or hanging out, which was to my advantage, having that child, that I couldn't do those things. But I also just remember that I was like, I can't live on $30,000. I can't live on, I asked my mom, I asked people that were knowledgeable, that cared about me, and everybody told me the wrong thing. And I remember the day of my interview, even my teachers were like, only include 10 photos in your portfolio. I put 100 photos. I just like decided that they were wrong. I don't even know why I decided they were wrong. I was like,
Yeah.
I just got to do this my way. And I got hired and just I beat my teachers were competing with me at that job. And it was perplexing that I beat them for me. But it was because the only thing I had was that I followed my heart. I asked for way more money than anybody ever told me. I asked for 55, knowing that there was some wiggle room. They gave me $50,000 back when that was, I mean, we're talking about Florida, who's, I live in LA now. $50,000 ain't nothing. Florida back in that day, 2007, $50,000 was an enormous amount for money, especially lower expenses. but also coming from making $8 an hour part-time,
Yes.
struggling, not getting paid, I was able to move into a two-bedroom apartment with my daughter. I was able to do some amazing things. And it was only because I ignored all that wonderful advice that was given to me. So I would tell her that, girl, do not listen to anybody.
Yeah.
Get really, really solid with your dreams
Yeah.
and follow that. It's even better if you make a mistake based on your decision, because at least you don't have anyone else to blame.
Yeah, for sure. So of all the things that you've done, overcome, and become, what are you the proudest of?
I would say being a mother,
Yeah.
and being the type of mother I am now compared to when I was a mother at 21, now 45, dramatically and drastically different. And understanding that how you love and you nurture a child creates a world. It really, the children are, I mean, I don't know if any of my children could be something super important, a president or something incredible. I have no idea what's inside of them, except that you can nurture that early on.
Yeah.
And seeing the potential in your children and knowing that they're creating the future. And if you want a better future, which I do, right, for them and for just humanity in general, then you take parenting really responsibly, and you make sure that you instill to the best of your ability, because they are going to grow up and be the humans they decide to be, but instill the right motives inside. We want money, but billions of dollars sitting on my bank account, it's not going to do anything. I can't, when I die, I can't take it with me. I can buy myself a million toys and still be unhappy. We see that in the world. But what I can tell you is that when we go and help homeless people or even talk about being contributors, that brings us joy
Yeah.
and it makes the world better.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, students, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Man, you got this good question. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Let me think about this for a second. Uh, um, mm, so many times I call myself the reluctant leader. And somebody asked me, like, what does that mean exactly? I was like, that means that I have to lead and I don't want to. I don't want to do it. I'd rather be drawing and painting my little art set in my studio and taking photos of cool things. I'd rather be doing that. That's just more fun. That just lights me up. But there's some things that I have to help people because I don't see anybody else doing it, especially not in my community.
So if anyone out there wants to reach out, learn more about you, see your photos, anything about your world, where's the best place to go?
The best way to find me is on my website, adjanys.com. This is ADJANYS.com. I have a unique name. I snagged that .com early on, and it's so easy because not that my name is easy to remember, but like once you know how to spell my name, you literally can just pop that in. You'll see my photos, you'll see my work, you'll see how to contact me, maybe even get on social media. But that's my world right there, my website.
Right on. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
I
Have
am
a great
so
holiday
honored to be
season.
here. Hi, say again?
Have a great holiday season. You look
Thank
like
you.
you're
Look
ready
at
to
the
go.
festivities, right? They're all over the place. You too. Thank you so much. I am so honored, Joe, to have me here. And if there's anything ever that I
Yes,
can be of service to you, please reach out.
absolutely. Thank you. Take care. I appreciate it.
Have a good one.